Hey guys, this is Justin at the Survivor Review, and today we're talking about episode 5 of HBO's Watchmen. Now, I mentioned in my review for the previous episode that I felt like that one didn't move the story forward too much. Well, this one certainly makes up for that, because Jesus Christ, so much happened in this episode. There's just so much to take in. It's a good mixture of world building and backstory, but also big reveals and moving the plot forward. This episode was fantastic. I loved it. This episode is very similar to episode 3, where it focuses on one character for the majority of the show. Like how that episode focused on Lori, this one focuses on Looking Glass, or Wade, the Tim Blake Nelson character, and he's the main focal point. You get to find out his backstory and kind of why he does some of the things he does. But then, like, towards the end, you get a lot of more stuff revealed about the ongoing plot. So this episode begins in 1985, on the day of the squid attack, and you see a really young Wade who's just working with this church group, going to this carnival in New Jersey to just hand out pamphlets, you know, saying the doomsday clock's getting closer to midnight, you know, repent, and basically that type of stuff. And you get to see a lot of references to Watchmen in there. You see like a person reading a Black Freighter costume, or you see like the gang members from that like gang you see throughout Watchmen, which I thought was really cool. And he's very shy and very timid, and this girl ends up taking an interest to him and ends up just basically conning him out of his clothes and running off. And while he's inside this like hall of mirrors, all of a sudden just this like something goes off, all the glass breaks and he falls down and everything, and he walks outside and you see the aftermath of the squid attack. Just like when Dr. Manhattan and Lori traveled to New York post the attack, you basically see that. It's just dead bodies all over the place. There's this really great shot of like the Ferris wheel going and just dead bodies hanging off of there and stuff. It's just a great visual representation of that. And then you get the best shots, is that the camera pulls back all the way back to New York City and you see the squid, which was just so cool seeing that like brought to life. Just so cool to finally see that in live action, you know, having that come off the page was such a great shot. And that was such a great intro. And then that leads right into modern day, and you see this ad for New York about people going back to New York and everything, and there's even a cameo by Michael Imperioli in there, which is like so random. I'm like, okay, sure. And then you see Wade at his day job, you know, because cops are like, it's a secret that they're cops and everything, and he's this market researcher, and he's giving the guys feedback on their New York ad, basically saying they're like, yeah, no, people are so afraid to go there. That's a place where, you know, 1 million people were murdered on one night, and people are like, well, you know, that's 30 years ago. And he's like, well, it doesn't matter. People are still not that big on going back to New York. So that was fascinating. This episode really delves into the squid attack and just how that affected the people and just the aftermath of that, which I thought was so fascinating. I think that's one of the coolest things about this show, is that it explores that stuff that you never really thought about. Like, the Watchmen book just ends with like world peace, and you're like, oh, everything's good. But you're like, what's the consequence of the world believing that an alien came from another dimension and just attacked, you know? How would that affect people? Also, you find out that people within the area that were close to the attack got hit by the psychic blasts of it, and that affected them. And then you find out about Looking Glass, and that the reason why he wears that mask is that it's all like basically reflective tape, and that stops all that stuff from messing with his head. And you also find out that the hat that Wade wears has that line on the inside too, so he's paranoid from all this because that really screwed with his head. You know, he basically has like PTSD from that attack, and that's why he kind of acts the way he is, which I thought was really fascinating. And then you have this scene in the police precincts. Angela's asking Wade about the pills, and he's like, you know, we're still working on it and everything. And then right after that, Lori calls him into the office, and she says, oh yeah, that cactus on your desk, I bugged it. So what are these pills that Angela's looking for? And he's like, you know, nope, it's just between us two, it's not important. And that's where she kind of like reads off the information and reveals that like he was near the blast zone and everything. And she basically, Lori just is like 3 steps ahead of like everybody in the show. And even she's just like, oh yeah, so that's why you wear the mask with like the tape on there and everything. And he's just like, what? And she's like, yeah, I know, don't worry. I love their interaction with each other, like the little tension they have, where like Lori just doesn't care, and she's like calling him mirror guy and stuff, and he doesn't like that. And there's just some good reactions where she keeps calling him that, and he's just sitting there staring at her like, what, really? What are you doing? I love their interactions. Like, the Lori interacting with these main characters is always the highlight of the show. And then we cut to later at Wade's house, and he has this alarm for the squid attacks and everything, which starts malfunctioning, and he starts freaking out because he needs to know when all this stuff's happening. And that also explains why in the last episode you have him like keeping track of the squid falls and everything, because he was there when it happened, so that's affected him and he wants to keep track of all this stuff, which I thought was really fascinating. That explained stuff in the last episode. I like how, like, as the show progresses, they keep explaining more and more that makes earlier episodes make more sense. And I feel like on rewatch is going to be so great because you're going to know all these things and it's going to make a lot more sense as you're watching it. I like how the show just constantly gives you information that just makes the previous episodes much more interesting. And there's some good visual references to the Watchmen book in here. The obvious one being the smiley O's that you see them testing in like the market research job that Wade has. You see these kids are testing out the cereal, and of course the box has a giant smiley face. And then also the Rorschach connection, because in the last couple videos I mentioned how I felt that that Wade was kind of like the Rorschach equivalent in the story. And he kind of is, although he's, you know, not psychotic like Rorschach. He's a character who, you know, had something mess him up when he was younger, and that kind of leads him to where he is, but not to the, like, extent that Rorschach is, but it's kind of similar. But there is one visual cue where he's at his house, and he has just a can of beans that he's just eating out of, you know, with the mask rolled up, just like Rorschach in the book, so I thought that was a good visual callback to that. And then he goes to his ex-wife to get information on the pills, and first off, she's working at this, like, cloning facility where they clone, like, animals and stuff, and there's this one bit, I love it, it's kind of like a throwaway moment. It's not lingered on or anything, where she's working on cloning these dogs, and she just looks at Wade and she's just like, does this look exactly like that one? And he's just like, no, that one looks taller. And she goes, damn it, and just takes the one dog and just throws it in an incinerator and just moves on, and you're like, what the fuck, she just incinerated that dog. Like, that's just a great kind of throwaway, subtle moment. And then she reveals that the pills he gave her are nostalgia, which is basically this, like, memory drug. Like, there's memories inside the pills, which is really cool. It's also interesting because nostalgia is the name of the clone that appears throughout the book, which is created by Adrian Veidt. Don't know if there's a connection between those, or if it's just, like, a reference or anything. I don't know about that yet. And then you do get a good conversation between Wade and his ex-wife, where she's like, you keep getting mixed up with the wrong women and stuff like that. And he's like, you know, well, you know, I had a good one, and, you know, of course that didn't work out. And, like, you get a lot more insight into his character now. He's kind of like this broken man. Like, he really made me interested a lot more in this character and a lot more invested. I mean, I liked him in the previous episodes. This one just, like, added so many layers to him. He's such a, it's a really sad story with this character that he's been messed up from this attack. Also, you see how he copes with that by going to these meetings where he meets up with a bunch of other people who are in the blast zone and affected by the psychic blast. Just kind of meeting around, just discussing the events and everything, and this new person shows up, and she kind of doesn't really talk or anything, but, you know, Wade's kind of interested in her. And then later on they meet up and end up going out to a bar and just like talking, having a really good conversation. You can tell that he's really starting to like her and everything, and you're like, oh, you know, things are looking up for Wade, like it doesn't seem too bad. And she ends up getting a ride home and leaving, and as the truck she's in drives off, it hits a speed bump and this lettuce pops out, which is a callback to earlier in the episode where there's lettuce in this truck that was owned by a cavalry member that they found, but they didn't find the truck. And so he's like, holy crap, she's a cavalry member. And when I first saw that, I was like, oh man, like, you just feel bad for the guy. 'Cause you're like, oh no, like, that's going good for him. He seems to have like this nice relationship going with this girl and everything. But you're like, oh, nope, now she's cavalry. And you're like, well, there goes that. And so he follows the truck, follows it to this this place, sneaks in, he finds the church set, which is where the cavalry videos were filmed at, and you're like, oh crap, like what's going on? My reaction while watching that whole scene was kind of just like no, don't go in there, like wait for backup. And then he sees cavalry members throwing basketballs into portals, and they're just like popping in and out. And then he stops them, like going to arrest them. And the lady turns to him and basically says like, oh yeah, this was all a ruse. We were trying to get you here. We want to tell you the truth. We want to convince you of what's really happening. And I'm sitting there like, huh? And then he gets taken by these guys, put in this room, and this cavalry member walks up, starts talking to him. And Wade just goes like, "You're not even trying to hide your voice, are you?" And the guy takes off the mask, and it's the senator. I knew there was something fishy about this guy. Like, there's something off about him in the previous episode. I'm like, there's something going on with him. And then when that happened, I was like, holy crap. And basically, he reveals that, like, he's working as a senator and a cavalry member, basically trying to run the cavalry and keep things, like, separate and safe and, you know, not making sure things don't escalate. And also, Judd was doing the same thing. They were working together on this. Things are getting revealed, like, left and right here. And it was at this point in the episode where I got so invested that, like, I tend to write little notes while watching the show, like, for the videos and stuff, that I kind of just stopped, like, writing notes and was just sucked into it, and I didn't write any notes for the rest of the episode. I was just, like, watching, like, holy crap. And he has this DVD, basically, because he's like, you know, after this, like, I'm gonna tell you the truth, and you're not gonna have to worry about squids attacking New York, like, ever again. And he has a CD that he said was shown to him that he pirated, and he plays it, and it's Adrian Veidt from 1985, basically talking into the future when Redford gets elected president, saying like, yeah, I basically caused this to happen because tomorrow New York is going to get attacked by a squid from another dimension, but it's not real, it's just a big hoax done by me. And you're watching Wade watch this, and you just see his world just like crumbling around him, like this whole thing that haunted him for the past 30 years was just a lie. And you just watch in his face, like, just that whole thing crumbling. Tim Blake Nelson was great in this episode. His performance was friggin' fantastic. I just have to say that. He was amazing. And basically, Adrian Veidt mentions that, you know, they have to keep this whole thing going, so there's going to be these little small-scale attacks every once in a while, and those are basically the Squid Falls. That's what the Squid Falls are. It's just, you know, them trying to keep the idea going that there's an alien from their dimension that could come here at any moment. So there you go, there's the Squid Falls. That's revealed, that's explained, which is really interesting. I will say though, I did think it's kind of weird. Like, I kind of get it that Adrian Veidt was talking to Redford and he's like, oh yeah, I caused all this happen, so, you know, we're gonna work together now. But I just thought it was weird that Adrian Veidt would make a video that would reveal all of that. Because you think that's something that he would just want to keep a secret, you know? Like, that's something he would never want to tell anybody because you don't want that getting out. But the fact that he told Redford, and the fact that, like, that's something they play to these people when they become part of this committee and stuff is like, ah, okay. I mean, I don't know. Maybe that's just me overthinking it. But holy crap, that's just a bombshell dropped right there. And then you cut to Adrian Veidt, where he has this suit on, and he's getting ready to be catapulted up like they were testing in the last episode. And he has this rope attached to him to, like, pull him back. They catapult him. He goes through, like, the sky into space, lands on this, like, moon, basically, and takes all the dead bodies that they were catapulting in the last episode, which I thought that was just them testing something. But no, he is catapulting them there for a reason. He takes all the frozen dead bodies and forms them up to say, save me, and then gets immediately pulled back in. So he's trying to escape this place, and he seems to be somewhere else. It didn't seem like it was Earth because there was another planet, like, right outside, like, that moon. So maybe he's in another, like, dimension or another planet? I don't really know yet, but that's moving. That's getting really interesting. There's a lot happening with that. And then you get to, like, the last scene where basically Wade gives up Angela. Because that was the one thing the senator was saying, like, you gotta do this one thing for me. You gotta get her out of this. Like, she's getting in the way of everything. And he basically does. He's talking with Angela at his desk, knowing that it's bugged, and he's just like, you gotta tell me what's happening, what's going on. And she just explains everything to him. She says, you know, that guy's my grandfather, he said he killed Judd, and after laying all that out, Lori comes out and arrests her, and right before they arrest her, she takes the nostalgia pills and just downs them all down, and then gets taken away. And you can just kind of tell that, like, Wade is kind of broken up about this. He didn't really want to do this. He didn't want to give her up, but he, you know, knows what's going on and everything. And you see the kind of the conflict in him, which is really interesting. And then the, like, final moment is him going home. And right as he goes home, you see cavalry members show up, and you see them walking into his house with, like, shotguns and everything, and it just ends. You're like, what the fuck? What's gonna happen? Like, geez, like, oh. So much in this episode. You get so much more information on the squid attack and how it affected everything. That was so fascinating. I like how they call that incident 11/2, because it was November 2nd, which is kind of similar, to 9/11, which I thought was really fascinating. You see kind of parallels with that. There's like a scene when they're in the restaurant talking, where the girl brings up like the movie that Spielberg made, Pale Horse, which is essentially his Schindler's List in this universe, because he mentions there's a scene with this little girl where she's in red and the whole rest of the movie's black and white. So I'm like, oh, that's interesting. Like, the way it explores that and the way it just like deconstructed Wade's character and turned him into this like really interesting person. Plus you get a few more reveals, like you find out that the Senator's part of the cavalry, you find out about the Squid Falls, like, so the story is really like propelled forward, like stuff's going on with Angela getting arrested and everything. Like, this episode did a lot of stuff. So yeah, that's episode 5 of Watchmen. Just, oh, there's a lot to this one, and I loved it. And that's all I have to say about that, and until next time, I'll talk to you guys later.